Welcome to Hail Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hail Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to it. Great to be with you on a Monday. It's Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt, Elijah Herbal. Lots of football to get into. And what'd you think? How'd you feel? Did you make any money? Let's answer all of those questions. Super Bowl 55. Man, a beatdown, a impressive thrashing by Tampa, and a lot of Nebraska fans have taken to social media. And a lot of Chief fans have done the same. They are not happy, but all is not lost. You still got a lot of that team coming back with a little bit of an edge. Meanwhile, Tampa, you've got a window. That window's open, and you got to jump through it. And Tampa absolutely did last night. Plenty of Super Bowl thoughts. We'll hear from Lavonte, David, and Ndamukong Suh. Coach Charlie McBride in 1 hour. We'll get his take on the Super Bowl, on that Tampa D, the game plan, and just what it means for Coach McBride to have one of the guys he's closest with, Jason Light, get that Super Bowl ring as general manager of Tampa. Greg Smith will hop on in. We'll talk some 2022 recruiting with him. Also some Super Bowl thoughts. Greg's big NFL guy. And our black shirt Husker NFLer, Jay Moore. We'll get his perspective. He played ball with Sue and has a unique perspective because Jay was one of those guys in the NFL as a linebacker that, you know what, your job's to cover the running backs and tight ends. And you saw how important that was last night. And there's a couple of things that I have to react to with last night. One, I think we all thought, based on our Friday conversations, the more it kind of sunk in, the more we thought, look, Kansas City's phenomenal, but how good are they with their plan B on the offensive line? Okay, that was a very real concern. Coach Jimbo Hansen threw that out there right before our predictions. You and I, Elijah, had talked about it. Kansas City is really good, and to be a guy on that roster on the offensive line, you have to be talented. But there is a gap, a difference between your starters and some of which are Pro Bowl guys, and that's not an excuse. I'm just saying there's a difference between your starting offensive line and then having to reshuffle an offensive line. So that's point one. Point two, when it comes to Tampa's game plan, you get punched in the face like they did back in Week 12, where you blink and it's 17 rip and the cheetah's gone for 2 bills. You're like, oh no. And that was a fear, right? I mean, as we have all watched Kansas City the last 3 years, they can go volcano on you immediately. I mean, they are levee breaks when the dam bursts open, whatever you want to call it. They are an explosion waiting to happen 9.5 times out of 10 on offense. They are that good with that quarterback, with that system, and those receiving weapons. They're incredible. And Todd Bowles learned his lesson. There was a lot of zone, not a lot of man. And Tampa had the personnel to make it happen. I know Travis Kelce ended up with his 100-yard receiving game, and I know Tyreek Hill ended up with 75 yards, lots of targets both ways. But when push came to shove, Kansas City was 0 for 9 to start out on third down, and that drifted through the game. Patrick Mahomes started out 2 of 10 throwing the football. And that was due to four-man pressure, and you've seen it at its best, at its peak. If you want to relate it to Nebraska football, if you go back to that 09 defense, you know who was on it. And then you saw it at the highest level in the biggest game in professional football with Shaq Barrett and Jason Pierre-Paul and Sue and Vea. But I think and this is not the homer take, this is just my amateur take on what I saw between White and Lavonte David. They were physical enough and I think Romo nailed it last night with Travis Kelce is a bully, and he's great. He is great at those option routes. He's great up the seam. He's great at getting you 8 and then getting another 5 after the catch. Bang, it's a first down. And what he does with his size and speed is just beat the crap out of whoever's trying to guard him, trying to cover him. And what I saw last night was Lavonte David, who was on Good Morning America this morning. We'll hear that hilarity in a moment. We saw Lavonte David and Devin White both body up Kelce and then be right in his hip pocket. Lavonte David ended up with only 2 pass, I shouldn't say only, but he had 2 pass breakups. But there were a number of times where Kelce had a couple of drops. They were tough catches. They were even more difficult because you had somebody right there to defend it. There's not a lot of times in the last 3 years with Kelce being as great as he is where he's had that type of coverage, that type of physicality off the line, and it made a monster difference. It made a big-time difference with Lavonte running him down. There's your key. There's your difference. We don't have to put 2 guys on Kelce, which means you're going to get lit up by Cheetah deep. You can play 1,000 yards off the line of scrimmage. Let's pay attention to Tyreek Hill so there's no big play, and let's make Kansas City nickel and dime their way down. So defensively, with what you have in Lavonte David as a guy that can cover and tackle in space on Travis Kelce last night, there's your difference. Same with Devin White. I mean, both those guys were key. Lavonte, though, got the assignment, got the defense where they needed to be when it was big. When it was third down, Lavonte David was on Travis Kelce. There's your difference. Sue got loose. Sue doesn't have to be the lead guy anymore, right? I mean, Sue's one of those guys that's an incredible player, and it sounds like he's going to be back. But Sue's just one of the guys that still demands a lot of attention. And meanwhile, you've got Shaq Barrett, the pride of Boys Town, and Jason Pierre-Paul, both still really active in their careers. I mean, we're talking late 20s, early 30s for both those guys, and I'm pretty sure that Barrett's only 28 years old. Those guys screaming off the edge are a flat-out nightmare. And the fact that Mahomes was able to get out of so much trouble and not have guys help him make plays, that was big. The other part of this here, Tampa's front seven, yes. Tampa's game plan, yes. But the other part of that, too, is the Brady effect, right? You can roll your eyes at it, but it's very, very real. If you listen to guys that are high-level talents, something was missing from them. Something's been missing from Antonio Brown. Great career, phenomenal wideout, arguably one of the best receivers in the game. Time away from football. Brady helps mentor him a little bit, helps get him to grow up a little bit, and you see AB have kind of a resurgence. You look at a guy like Leonard Fournette, really carried Jacksonville to a playoff run a few years back, but dude wanted out of jail that was Jacksonville. Gets to Tampa and embraces the we, not me. You've got a lot of guys that individually are incredible talents, but when they go to Brady, and when Tampa went and got Brady, that's your moment over the top. That's your edge because of Tom Brady. Guys listen to him. Guys respect him. And we'll hear from Lavonte David in a minute about that pregame, about what it means to be immortalized by winning a Super Bowl. And when Brady's talking, you can hear coaches talking about it. You can hear guys that are pure players. But when you got a guy going for number 7, talking to you about how to do it, let's do it as a team. Let's get the buy-in. We talk about buy-in 9 months out of the year because it's a topic of conversation you're wanting to see fulfilled on Saturdays as a Nebraska fan. But really, you have that defense, that defensive coordinator, that talent acquisition by Jason Light with ownership willing to spend, and then you get it all put together with Bruce Arians and Todd Bowles. And then you get a guy like Brady who's listened to, guys want to play for, and guys believe in. There's your 31-9 result. Last thought before you jump in here, Elijah. Kansas City has lost before in the last 3 years. Kansas City's lost in shootouts if they are to lose the last 3 years. Let's think about it. Their game against the Rams, that was the mother of all overs on a Monday night. Their shootouts with Buffalo. Their shootouts with New England back when it was Brady in Foxborough. This is the first time Kansas City and their offense got taken to the woodshed by somebody defensively. Kansas City's had off games, so they've maybe not been hitting on all cylinders. They're still going to score 30 in their sleep. It's, do they get 40 or do they go off for 50 with this talent, with this offense? They aren't broken. They just got to be better, and quite honestly, they need to be healthy, and they're going to be fine. Could they have run the ball more? That's quite honestly the knee-jerk reaction I had. If Tampa's got 5 guys playing 30 yards off, or safeties anyway, 30 yards off, you have a lighter box, do you try and run it? But that's the first time in this Chiefs Kingdom era, with Mahomes, with Reed, with this talent, that we've seen somebody dismantle this offense. It was on the offense last night, and it was because of Tampa's defense.
It's incredibly difficult to go back-to-back. Tampa's defense, respect to him, but the defensive line of Tampa Bay just dominated the offensive line of the Kansas City Chiefs. It wasn't close. That Chiefs offensive line, I mean, you could see that the guys that they were paying $15 million a year to play offensive line were sitting out, and you could see the difference between the guys that are making $15 million a year and the guys that are making $2 million a year. $2 million a year, you're making a lot of money. You're still a very talented guy.
And you got to be spot good, but it just depends on who you're going against.
And it's okay if you got one guy that's worth $2 million playing next to those guys making $15 million, you know what I'm saying? But if they're all making $2 million, if they're all your backups, which I think 4 of the 5 guys are,
or they were reshuffled at least.
Or at least reshuffled. Yeah, it's not going to go well for you. Patrick Mahomes was already hobbled coming into this game, too.
And it got worse.
I said it when I was watching the game last night. I said, looks like whatever shot they gave him pregame wore off during that long halftime show. He came back in the second half looking hobbled. He wasn't throwing well to his left in the second half. And as I said, it's difficult to go back-to-back. Not many teams have done it in history, and there's a reason for it. It's incredibly rare that you can get back-to-back seasons where you're lucky enough with injuries, where you just get good enough game plans, you get the right matchups in the playoffs. It's tough to do. If any team can come back and win it next year, it's the Chiefs. So it's not all doom and gloom for the Chiefs, but respect to the Buccaneers. They played a hell of a game. Defensive game plan was great, and Tom Brady did enough.
So this is interesting. You've got Eric Fisher, and here's what you've got some insight here by the injured offensive tackle here. Listen, you had some one-sided calls. It goes from bloody murder against Green Bay in the secondary, or either that or they're going to let him play. It's one or the other. And you had some questionable calls if you're a Chiefs fan. You've got the tackles, center, and guard was more than they could have overcome. Speed means nothing if you don't have time to use it, which is very true. So, listen, Kansas City can get their top playoff running back and the proper O-line for next year and be okay. And, you know, you saw this drop-off from Clyde, right? And how right was he towards the end of the season? You just didn't see it. Le'Veon wasn't there. So, I mean, Kansas City has been great at running the football. They've been more one-dimensional because no one's really been able to stop it, and you get down, and then you do have to chuck it, and Coach McBride always says you got to stop the run. Let's hear from Lavonte David here on the game plan last night from Todd Bowles. This was Lavonte David with the NFL Network.
Coach Bowles, we call him the mastermind, man. He believe in us. You know, we call us the leaders of the defense. The defense go as long as we go. So whenever our numbers called, man, we go come and step up and make plays, and that was what we had to do tonight. You know, we know they live for the deep balls, man, so we just let our D-line go, and we took care of everything underneath, and we got the victory.
Last thought from Lavonte here when it comes to his NFL Network post-game motivation from Week 12.
I tried to tell, I said, I guarantee you those boys in that locker room saying no way you going to win tonight on our turf. How much conversation did y'all have about that?
Hey, we had 2 weeks to think about it. We had 2 weeks to think about what they did to us in Week 12. when we came out and adjusted in the second half, man, we had that on our mind the whole time. We got to play that throughout the whole football game. I mean, we listened to the doubters. You know, we was playing a great defense. We were playing great defense throughout the playoffs. They still doubted us. So I don't know why they did that, man. We stepped up to the challenge big time, man. We call ourselves grave diggers, man, and we did that right there tonight, man. Took out the number one offense in the game, but you got to give respect to them, man. They're a great football team. They got great players, but obviously our guys was better tonight.
Lavonte David, man, incredible for him. Do we have time for Good Morning America? Briefly? All right. Yeah, he ran out of gas this morning.
Did you really run out of gas on your way to the live shot and our booker had to pick you up and bring you there?
Yeah, I got to sit on it. I really did. I mean, I was out just celebrating with the team, and I didn't pay attention to my gas tank, and I ended up running out of gas, and they had to come pick me up. But I mean, I'm still happy though. I couldn't. It was my first time ever doing that too as well. But
it's all right. It's good. I just had to do that. Hey, you know what? You didn't run out of gas last night, and that's what's most important. On that field, you didn't run out of gas, and that's what matters.
Somebody get that man a chauffeur. Well, we'll see if Jay Moore has ever run out of gas off the field. Blackshirt Husker NFLer Jay Moore is next. His take on the Super Bowl. The mother of all streakers. We'll get to that. Hail Varsity on a Super Bowl Monday presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
All-State, 2-year starter, and rush in for the Big Red and NFL vet.
Is Dudeness or Duder or, El Duderino if you're not into the whole brevity thing.
It's Blackshirt Jay Moore with Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for hanging out. Super Bowl Monday. It's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. I'm sure Jay Moore was nodding along to the Bruce Springsteen commercial. Jay Bird, have you ever run out of gas? Do you ever pull a Lavonte?
I haven't. I can confidently say I've never done that. I don't even know if I've gotten close, to be honest. Even with today's technology, it tells you how many miles you got, and I still think you can go, maybe a 10 or so miles when it says 0. So no, I can honestly say I've never done that. I'm not going to try to anytime soon either. I know that.
Well, at least wait a couple of weeks, right?
Right.
If you're going to do it. All right, Jay Moore is with us, Blackshirt Husker NFLer. His podcast, More to It, with Hurrdat Media, at JMoore44 on Twitter. Jay, what'd you think? Just break this all down for us with your defensive mind, your time in the NFL, and your unique ability to not only play with your hand in the dirt, but also make that transition to a guy at linebacker that can cover and is asked to cover backs and tight ends. Tell me what it meant last night for Lavonte, his ability to D up Kelsey, but also just the Tampa game plan with that front four.
Yeah, it just shows you how important it is when you have 4 guys who can get after the quarterback, and you can sit 7 guys in coverage. And it shows you how important it is when, you can have, one of the league's best tight ends, one of the league's best wide receivers, and if you can't protect one of the league's best quarterbacks, you're going to have a hard day no matter what. So it just kind of shows you that O-line is you're only going to go as far as your O-line can go, and obviously losing Fisher was detrimental to that offense. You got to shuffle around a few guys in the offensive line, and then Tampa they were on point. The Todd Bowles game plan, they got Mahomes, running early. They got him on the move, and obviously he has the banged up toe. So just what they were able to do in different games, they're able to do up front, and to where they forced Mahomes to his left or to right, and they just always had a free guy. It just seemed like, whether they're having guys come for free, and that's rushing 4-on-5 and 3-on-5 sometimes. They're always having a guy come free just with some of their games, and that's big. That's big time football when you can get 15 running, and then we know how good he is when obviously we've seen some of the throws he's able to make last night, and albeit they're incompletions, but the guy is freakish talent for being able to throw across his body, and damn near throwing from he was horizontal to the ground at one point, and almost threw it on point. So it just moving the pocket on Mahomes and having a guy come free, and those guys covered so well. I mean, just shows you how talented, White and obviously Lavonte David are. Those guys making plays, and Lavonte's so good in coverage. And just those guys just locking down the game plan. I mean, they were keyed in. I mean, who would have thought that Kansas City would not even score a touchdown? I mean, that's just, I would like to see the prop bet on that if Kansas City not scoring a touchdown. I haven't seen it. I've asked a couple people. They don't even know if it was, available. I'm sure there was some sort of odds on it, but you bet that you are a rich guy this afternoon. But it just came down to Kansas City's offensive line. I really do. You have to give credit to Tampa Bay's defense. I mean, they've been really good all year, but I just knew it was going to be hard to duplicate that performance like they had against them, earlier in the year, where obviously Tyreek Hill went off, but it's just hard to beat a team twice. And then you're getting Tampa Bay again. Even that game was at Tampa Bay also, but you're still getting Tampa Bay at home. And I know it's not a full crowd, but there is still something to say about, I would guess Tampa Bay sleeping in their own bed and to some extent all week, and and playing in your home field, and you got 12 on your side. You got Tom Brady on your side, but the defensive game plan was big. But not having Fisher, that changed the ball game for Kansas City's offense. Yeah, you mean the last time Patrick Mahomes hasn't scored a touchdown was at Texas Tech. I mean, come on, that's crazy stuff. But hats off to Tampa Bay and their defensive game plan, because 9 points to the most potent, powerful offense in the NFL. That's something special.
Jay Moore with us here on Hail Varsity Radio. And Jay, I kind of want to flip this question around and ask you about the Chiefs' offensive game plan. Do you think Andy Reid came in too aggressive? The stats that I was looking at said Patrick Mahomes was under pressure within 2.5 seconds of the snap for 50% of his dropbacks last night. It was just a ridiculous number. Do you think that Andy Reid abandoned the run to really went too aggressive with the passing game, or is there just not much he can do with that offensive line?
Yeah, it's kind of 6 one way, half a dozen the other. I mean, you got a mismatch, kind of put together offensive line. It's just, you got to try to figure out and try to, where are your weapons? I'm probably going to lean on Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce. And, the rookie at LSU, he'd been banged up and coming off a pretty bad ankle injury. You got 3 of the best players in the league. You got Mahomes, you got Kelce, you got Hill. I'm going to try to put the game plan in their hands. I know, looking back at it, Kansas City did have some successful runs, but I don't know that they tried to get some things going, but I think Tampa Bay's defense is just too good. And with the offensive line, let's just see what we can do. Let's put it in the hands of 15. Let's put it, try to get the ball to 87. Let's try to get the ball to 10 and just see what they can do. And he doesn't have time. That's just hard. It's when your offensive line you lose arguably one of the best offensive tackles in the game, and that's Eric Fisher. You are scrambling. You are scrambling to try to find something, and it's hard. They tried to use their weapons. They didn't have the time.
Jay Moore's with us on Hail Varsity Radio. Jay Bird, what does a ring do for Sue? What's a ring do for Lavonte? And I know they've been getting kind of bigger stages. That was the biggest of their careers. Sue'd been on that stage before, paired with Aaron Donald. But there's just some great acquisitions Jason Light went and got for that defense. But I think Bowles has been great. But overall, man, does that help the argument for them when it comes to enshrinement time?
Oh, definitely. It's just validation. Sue has, played over 10,000 snaps in his NFL career and just never really been hurt, banged up, played pretty healthy, for a guy that position. And, his 10th season in the league. That's impressive stuff. It's going to be interesting to see what the future holds for him now. He's got a ring. Lavonte, we talk about it all the time here. We feel like he's the most underrated linebacker in the league. You hear about so many other players, and now you got to see what Lavonte's able to do in coverage and in the run game, and just plays so smart. And all of a sudden he gets a ring, and it's just total validation. I don't know if I'm sure Sue will get talked about to get to Canton. I mean, I don't. Lavonte has, I would think, still a few more years left in his career, to be honest. So, it's just complete validation. And then you got what Jason Light's able to do, and then you have one of the Davis twins. I can't forget
Khalil
or Carlos. Khalil.
Yeah.
And then my man, one of my good friends, Chad Wade, who was a strength coach when I was there at Nebraska my whole time, and then even when I was coming back here to train at the facility at Nebraska, he handled all the guys getting ready for the combine and all the vets coming back in the off season. So, and he's been down in Tampa Bay the last handful of years, and he was on that stuff. So yeah, just a lot of guys on that roster and in that in those offices that have a lot of Nebraska ties. Just happy for them, and obviously having Sue get one and end his career out. If that is the case, and Lavonte finally gets some respect that he deserves.
Jay, a couple minutes here before we say goodbye. We were talking kind of about the Brady factor. And, Brady's one of those guys that he's kind of like Alabama, right? There is fatigue, but you see a moment like last night and you hear a number of guys point to him. We're talking Lavonte. We're talking Sue. We're talking Antonio Brown. Go through the roster. Go through that locker room. Even Lenny, right? Fournette. Guys that were kind of circled as malcontents or psychos, they all fall in line. I mean, have you ever seen or experienced something like that before as a professional?
Unfortunately, I was never around, guys that bring out the best in people. And I think what's always amazed me about Brady is just, and same with, Alabama and you may just say Saban, is just the complacency. He's so easy to get complacent when you've won so many championships. The guy you saw him at the end of the game just yelling at his guys in the huddle out of excitement because it means that much to him. And, I heard stories today about when Brady did the golf deal with Phil and Tiger, back in, I don't know when it was, May or June. It's kind of one of the first live events that we've had, the sporting events we've had, and Brady's doing a workout in the parking lot at Medalist Golf Club where the event had. He's out doing sprints and doing some band stuff, and Barkley, who was calling the events, like, "What are you doing, dude?" And Brady's like, "I'm trying to win a Super Bowl." And this guy's doing this before a charity event and reigning and medalist, and he's so keyed in. He's not complacent. He's so hungry. He wants it so bad that he's going to bring out the best. He's going to make sure everyone is on point, and because he wants it. He knows he can't do it by himself, and whoever he has in that locker room, he's going to make sure that they understand what their role is, and not that they need to do anything more, but whatever your role is, whatever you're asked to do it, and do it to your best of your ability. And that's what he does. He doesn't try to overdo anything. He doesn't try. I mean, he's not obviously the most gifted athlete out there. Doesn't have the strongest arm. He understands everything, and he controls what he can control. And he wants that for his players. And I wish I could have been around. I mean, there were some good ones. I mean, Alex Smith probably comes to mind. But Alex was pretty quiet. I was in San Francisco, and he had some injuries, and he was younger in his career. But he was up there. But I was not around in great franchises at the time. San Francisco wasn't what it is now, and I was at the Rams, and I think we won 2 games, and I was at the Rams, and a little bit I was with the Titans. Vince Young was kind of there, but Vince Young's not Tom Brady, so that's a special guy. I mean, there's a reason why he's the greatest to do it at that position.
Jay Moore's with us. Jay Bird, we'll do this again. Thanks for your insight today, bud.
Yep, you got it, guys.
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
Thanks for spending time at Hail Varsity, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Mr. Blackshirt Charlie McBride, 25 minutes away. His take on that Tampa D, what they did to the Chiefs. Greg Smith, we'll see if Nebraska is en route from a development/recruiting standpoint to get an offensive line and defensive line that can control and take over games. You feel okay. At least you're probably buying stock in where the offensive line's going. There's been an MIA or an APB out for someone to go get after the quarterback if you're Nebraska football for a while. So that still is a missing puzzle piece. 466-3776 800-825-5865. We're talking Super Bowl, plenty of that today. And if you're a Chiefs fan, want to hear from you. Are you worried about next season based on what happened yesterday, or you think it's something that this team can shake off? And honestly, my reaction, and we'll hear from Andy Reid and some of the crew from Kansas City in a bit, but I think Kansas City can absorb this and be okay. I don't think their window's shut at all, clearly, and they'll be fine. I think some of it had to do with injuries. I think a lot of it had to do with Tampa's execution, and you just had an incredible front seven performance, and it's not like Tampa had not been doing that. They have been riding this to peak at the perfect time. They have gotten better as the season has gone on, and you saw them do it against Aaron Rodgers on the road. You saw them do it against Breeze on the road, or a good New Orleans team on the road anyway. And they were at 7-5 at one point, and then they cranked out 8 straight victories. Teams that have to go on the road, and it's what Green Bay did with Aaron Rodgers' championship. They were a road playoff team, right? They were a 6 seed. So it can happen, and when it does happen, man, you get galvanized and you put a run together. And it was just a really cool football game to watch last night.
Do you know who else had a great performance last night? The Weeknd.
Yeah?
I was like thinking I got to make a rejoin with the Weeknd song. I loved that performance last night.
Fine with me. One of my favorite tweets last night was the fact that it was a Pepsi halftime show and all the songs were about Coke.
I can't feel my face when I
no more karaoke, Elijah. But no, exactly. I like his music. I mean, good dude. I mean, it'd be a hell of a fun time to hang out with.
Oh yeah, I guarantee it.
But no, I mean, I thought his performance was fine.
Also, great story too. Just he's the son of immigrants to Canada, and 10 years ago, within the past decade, he was homeless and started making music and has made it big. And
so give the old guy in the room here the backstory with the jock straps.
Okay, so they aren't jock straps.
No, I know.
Yeah. But they're all wearing the masks because he got supposedly this crazy plastic surgery done.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
And then he had to go to accept I think it was an AMA award, American Music Association.
And he was rocking this.
And he was rocking this post plastic surgery face thing, and people still don't know if he was actually these are real bandages or if he was using it as a style thing to just kind of promote I got a new look coming out. But then he kind of took it and made fun of himself with having the dancers dress up with it, and people thought it was demonic or whatever, but I thought it was cool.
No, he had a backstory with it. Husker basketball, a scheduling change with the Big Ten. Nebraska's gauntlet intensifies a day sooner. So Nebraska was supposed to hook up with Wisconsin on Thursday. That's been moved to Wednesday, 8:30 on BTN. They'll also play Illinois Friday in Lincoln at 8 o'clock. So you get Minnesota tonight. Yay. And then you'll also get Wisconsin and Illinois. So Murderers Row for Nebraska. Loved their energy on Saturday. Really hate their shot selection and basketball IQ a lot of the time. They drive me nuts. And I know I'm not, air quote, supposed to cheer. And I know they really fought. Their effort's not in question. But they're just not a smart basketball team half the time. They got incredible athleticism. They got a good coach. They just don't always play together, or they just don't execute. They're just not a good basketball team. Clearly, obviously, the record shows that. I'm not breaking news or trying to waste your time with that take, but it just, as a Nebraska basketball guy and a guy who grew up going to games, they're just very difficult to watch. And I hope it gets better for them next year. They are going to get murdered the rest of the year. I don't know if they win a game, right? I just, honestly, I don't know. Something will come up. There'll be some sort. They're getting better and they're fighting hard. Good. But when push comes to shove, they're just a train wreck.
Yeah, I mean, they're better than they were last year, but they're still bad.
But yes.
The offense is still terrible. The defense has taken a step this year. But the offense, I mean, it still makes me want to gouge my eyes out every single time I see him miss a free throw. Well, every single time I miss him see a layup. Every single time I see Ivan take an extra dribble in the paint and get swatted.
Ivan, I don't think Ivan was an issue Saturday. I mean, he played hard, but it's just the turnover, the slop. And granted, we got to couch all of this with context of, listen, man, you've been on a month hiatus due to COVID, and you've got to ram together trying to get back in shape. So that needs to be considered, but they got murdered on Twitter Saturday. Just absolutely. And Nebraska basketball fans are like, it's just covering your eyes. And it's a stupid shot early in the shot clock after you've crawled back in through your blood, sweat, and effort. And then it's free throws that you're just doinking. And it's not boxing out. It's just critical stretches. I mean, they just... There's a reason they're maybe going to go winless.
I mean, you're not going to win basketball games.
You can run this back at me here at the end of the season if they flip it around, but they're just difficult. I'm wondering if it's time to reconsider the JUCO / transfer market. Okay, and you got a 5-star high school kid coming in. Awesome. How much other high school talent are you going after versus what is there in the JUCO and transfer portal? Like, and I'm not. I like Tim Miles' personality as a coach. I think most of the brains were tied to Craig Smith. All right, and Nebraska hit a jackpot there because they were getting recycled kids that were playing at a high level. Cope and Palmer and Walt and Petaway, right? I mean, those were all guys that were D1 dudes that just for one reason or another left. They landed in Lincoln, were really good players, right? So that worked to one NCAA tournament run, an underachieving second time with those kids back, and then you had the 18-19 win team that was NIT bound. At least they were on the bubble, right?
But none of those teams had to go up against just the quality of the Big Ten this year. There's eight teams in the Big Ten in the top 25.
This is as good as the Big Ten's been, and last year was incredible. And you've got teams like Indiana beating Iowa, right? So Indiana's on in the ascension. I think the best team in the Big Ten's Ohio State, flat out, because they beat the hell out of you. They can shoot. They are good in the paint. They defend. And
the common theme of all these teams is that they are old. They have years of experience in their starting lineups.
They do. So we'll see. And I look at all the in-state talent. You look at the kid at Grand Island and Trout. You look at all the Millard North kids. You look at Chucky at Bell West and some of the other Bell West talent. You look at some of the kids that have... Do you look hard at trying to find and land some of the high school kids, go that route versus going JUCO shopping at some point?
And now, back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time this hour, it's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Charlie McBride is 10 minutes away. Jim emails in your opinion, does the Big Ten have a Final Four team? Absolutely. Could
have three.
I think at least one. Yeah, at least one. I mean, who knows what happens with Michigan's layoff? I love Ohio State because they just can play different styles. If Michigan gets back to Michigan form, they're clearly pretty money.
If Iowa can get back to their form from the beginning of the year, they've been...
Iowa's a matchup nightmare, and the odds of them, I mean, it could happen that they find somebody that can make them pay for not... Iowa's defensive intensity's like always been optional. I mean, they're better than they've been, but they still want to just drop 100 on you and just go that route. Illinois is the team where what Illinois do you get? We'll have Pizzo on with this Thursday. We'll dive a little bit deeper into the Final Four potential for the Big Ten. I mean, I look at this Big Ten conference this season. I mean, Sparty's just beat up. They're not good. But it wouldn't surprise you, would it, if they put a dirty run together because they're Michigan State. Indiana has some talent. Northwestern's clearly fading. Maryland is kind of dangerous, but they're a work in progress.
How many Big Ten teams are going to be in the tourney this year? It's probably somewhere around 10?
A lot.
Over half the conference?
I don't know. I don't know if you get 8, if you get 10. I don't know if you get Michigan State in on name value, or if you're going to get Purdue and Indiana to jump up and get off the bubble. They've all been. Rutgers is a good basketball team. They've all been ranked. Mm-hmm. They've all knifed one another to get knocked out of the ratings. Everyone's been on a bit of a skid aside from Michigan, and that was state imposed, right? So, reminder about moving here. West Blue Realty, man, they take care of you, and they'll take care of you this 2021 season. And if you're looking for a residential home in Lincoln or surrounding community, West Blue Realty is going to be where you turn. For a limited time, you mentioned Hale Varsity, and West Blue Realty can provide up to $1,000 on the closing of your next home purchase. Tom Luby is there to help and can make it happen at 402-540-3768. Kelly Hofschneider, 402-202-2312. Give Kelly a ring. He can make it happen as well. It pays to work with West Blue, westbluerealty.com, and get an appointment scheduled today with West Blue Realty when you're in Lincoln, or if you're in Lincoln at 1120 K Street, Suite 200 is where you find them. And you know what? Maybe the time is now. Maybe you're getting your property value, or I should say evaluations back. Maybe you're looking at that house that, man, you've wanted and it's finally on the market. Or maybe it's time to just make a killing off of what you're in now, right? That's smart. And West Blue Realty is where you got to go for that, westbluerealty.com. I promise the harrowing call from Kevin Harlan coming up next hour, and it's sound advice. We all remember our father or that person in our life that looked us in the eye and said, "Be a man," like Vito Corleone. It's time to be a man. And it was wise words on the airwaves last night on ESPN Lincoln, Westwood One, and over on KFOR from Kevin Harlan, former Chiefs announcer.
We also got to get through our steak and a beer bets next hour, too.
Somebody must have done well. Somebody must not have done well if Elijah's anxious to drop those. McBride's next.
Welcome to Hale Varsity Radio, the voice of Husker Nation. Insight, opinion, expertise, with the biggest and best names talking Nebraska across the state. Join the show on Twitter at Hale Varsity and at Schmitz_radio. Call in at 402-466-ESPN or 1-800-825-5865. Here's Chris Schmitz.
Welcome to an hour two. It's Hale Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery. It is that time, Mondays with Charlie. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride with us. Coach, how we doing today?
Doing good. You're freezing.
You're telling me, man. We've got minus 3 or -6 or, I don't know, -10 tonight for the overnight. Do we beat you, or do you have us?
I don't know. I haven't. Last I looked at our thermometer was this morning. It was 12, and so I don't know what it is now. But I haven't been out, so I'm not going there.
Good for you, man. You stay in. You stay by the fireplace, and
right.
You watch some football and just leave it be.
I'm hiding out.
Yeah, hideout is the way to put it. And, Patrick Mahomes would have liked to have been able to hide out last night. Man, oh, man, oh, man.
They found him.
No, I think they did. And take me through. What did you see from Tampa's defense? And you're a guy who likes putting a whooping on quarterbacks, so I'm sure you enjoyed last evening.
Well, I know their thing was right away, is everybody knew it, was first of all, their left tackle, they were missing, I think, 3 linemen, or they had a second-team guard and a couple of tackles and stuff, and so their offensive line was, not their offensive line, and it just showed because they just overran them, and it's just too hard to do that. I know the last 2 weeks that left tackle has been beat I don't know how many times. And, so you kind of anticipated that. I thought maybe they'd, instead of any play action stuff, maybe they'd just try to get him out of the pocket quicker. But, it's just hard to, if you're not there and you don't know what you can do and can't do. And, it's one of those things that happens. I mean, that's the way the game goes in the NFL. I mean, you don't have a lot of leeway, and you can't, you have a trading base, but you can't, once that's closed, that's over. So you have to go with what you got, and I think that they were probably a little shorthanded, but I don't think they would have won even if they had them all. I'll be honest with you, because I think they were really stoked up, and it's hard to beat a team twice anyway. And when you beat them, and you got them down at your home field, and from what I gathered, it's hard when you go home every night to your house, to your bed, to your everything. It's a little different than staying in a hotel, but and so there's a lot of things that have to do with having it at your home field. So the advantage from the beginning was with the Bucks, and I'm sure that there's a lot of guys that put a lot of money on them, But, I mean, I'm glad. I mean, that's who I wanted to win. I'm a Kansas City fan, but with all the Nebraska people and, and Jason and all those guys, I could say it's pretty hard for me to not hope that they win.
Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio, and what a Nebraska storyline, and that's been promoted pretty heavily today. And it's not just the NFL Network that's doing the story on Lavonte David or Ndamukong Suh. It's Good Morning America. It's CBS This Morning. It's CNN. Right. I mean, it's national platforms. I mean, everybody knows about Suh. We all know about Lavonte. But not many teams can say, hey, you linebacker, go stick on Kelsey and have it work. And what a great game coach last night by Lavonte David with not only his coverage but also his ability to get after the football.
Oh, yeah. He always has been that way. I mean, he's a guy who you turn on the TV and watch him, and there's no loafing in that guy's body. Mm. I mean, he's going a million miles an hour. He's one of those guys that's he's a workaholic on the field. Mm. I mean, he turns it on, and he never turns it off till he walks off the field at the end of the game. And I was really impressed with him last night. A lot of times you can talk after your game. You can talk to a guy, and you can kind of tell that he's pretty sacked, mm-hmm. and worn out and stuff, and he looked like he was ready to go again. And so I mean, what I'm saying is they're probably in pretty good shape, mm-hmm. and I know that was one of the things the Cardinals did a lot of. They did a lot of in-season running and stuff like that when he was with Aaron's was with the Cardinals.
Well, and that's what I'm interested in too, Coach, is you're really close to the Arizona Cardinal group when Jason Light was down there mm-hmm. as their director of personnel. I mean, they just moved Arizona to Tampa pretty much. I mean, Jason Light got the GM job. Jason Light said, hey, Bruce Arians, we had a good old time in Arizona. Let's come on down to Tampa. And then Bowles was the defensive coordinator for Arians before he got the Jets head job.
Right.
And, I mean, that three-core group really did a number. And then all these acquisitions Jason Light has made have been incredible. It's one thing to want to go get Brady. It's another thing to be able to get Brady. You look at Shaq Barrett, the Boys Town kid. You look at Jason Pierre-Paul, and then being able to go get Suh and re-sign Suh. And that's one of the first things Arians said was he thanked Jason Light last night on the podium.
Right. Well, the one thing he said if you heard him, when he first started, he just said, why did you come? What made you come back in here? And he said, well, I trust Jason. Mm-hmm. And that's a big deal when your head coach and your general manager are close, and you can really. And Jason's a listener too. I mean, he's not a bold guy that we're doing it my way and that's the way it is, and tough luck if you don't like it. A lot of these guys are that way. They got an ego that's a million miles high, and he isn't that way. And, he doesn't have an ego, I don't think. Mm. He just does his job, and he's put that thing together pretty good, I think. And of course, getting guys back that were, playing. I mean, you get the tight end, Kronk back, and he's ugly as heck, and he can make a difference, and he did last night. And some of those guys that they had on the team before, Brown, and that he caught a touchdown pass, and he didn't play a whole lot this year, but yeah, he was just starting to come on, and I assume next year he'll be dangerous. He'll be in that mix with those other receivers, and so they're gonna if they can keep it. That's the thing right now. It's just how you keep these guys. And he made a statement this morning. He said a lot of guys, it's not so much the money anymore. It's money, but if you're close and they really like what they're doing and where they're working, sometimes that makes a big difference. And so I think they got a pretty good, tight group.
Well, and Brady's a guy that doesn't hurt for money, obviously, but he's used to kind of that setup because for years they would find a way to make it work with kind of the old New England discount, right? You want to win, it's going to be a bit of a discount.
Some of the salary back.
Yeah,
so
yeah. Well, that's just it. And have you had much contact with Brady, or do you know anyone that's been around him much? He's such a difference maker in that locker room.
Well, that's when you have a guy that has that status, and you have a good person. Guys want to play hard because they don't want. It's kind of a deal where I want to play as good as you are. Mm. And I think that has a lot to do with motivation of the team. I think one of the guys you're gonna find out has really come around a lot, attitude-wise, is Evans, the split receiver, Mike Evans, and people like that. Some of those guys that that he trusted before, and and now he's making those guys, do what has to be done to be the best. And because he knows how to get there. And, I've heard people say several times, that he is one super competitor. And I guess from what I could gather this morning, his sisters are, one was an All-American and the other is a baseball player who's going to be an All-American down at UCLA. And so they got a family full of competitors and stuff, and I think he probably grew up in kind of that attitude. I don't think he was a pusher. I think he just, everything he did was in his own mind. I don't think some coach talked him into things. I think he just did it, and he just kept competing. I know when talking to the Michigan coaches way back when, and they said his accuracy was way above the chart. They, it was crazy, and because of his appearance. They had a kid there that ended up signing with the Yankees as a baseball player at Michigan at the time. And they kind of went with him and a friend of mine who was actually the recruiting coordinator. They had a vote, and he was one of the only guys that voted for Brady to start at the end of the year, kind of. Well, then the big guy gets hurt Brady comes in and wins games for them when they're behind and stuff like that, and that was the end of that tune. And, and I think I always remember the time, when they made a big deal out of once he got going where he got drafted. I think that's still something that motivates him. I mean, he's admitted that himself.
Charlie McBride's with us. Well, yeah, the Drew Henson situation, and Brady goes in and wins an Orange Bowl with him. But yeah, for whatever reason, he's always been slighted. No longer, mind you, but he's always been a guy that was slighted, and man, he's rode that as motivation, as that chip on his shoulder for a long, long time, and then, man, he just has the faith and the trust of his teammates to follow him, right?
Yeah, you'll find there's people like that just that are actually trying to prove it every day. It's not just I'm all state or I'm all American or I'm all this. That didn't mean a damn thing to him. I mean, he has to prove that they were wrong every day. And the same thing with good players. They want to prove that they belong there every day. And that's where it comes from. And he's that way. I mean, he's not done he's trying to prove right now. The way he works in the off season and the way with nutrition, with everything he does. It doesn't give you any indication that he's going to retire.
He's 43, 44, going on 35. It's incredible. Coach, I got to ask you, what did you have last night to snack on during the Super Bowl?
We not really much.
Really?
Well, we didn't do much. I went out and you can't eat at our restaurants still are doing right. So. I got a slab of ribs cooked that was cooked and down at the road, and we just sit here and ate ribs.
Well, that sounds like a winner. I was going to say, were they pretty good?
Oh yeah, they're big time. We do it once a week usually, but we did a little more than we should have yesterday.
I love that. All right, well, Coach, were they St. Louis style or were they the thick ribs?
No, they're the baby backs that
right.
But this guy cooks them outside still, on his grill. I mean, he's got a big stove, big cooker out there, and even in the winter, he's cooking all his stuff outside. So, you can't go wrong. Is what the deal is.
Now, people have tried to tell me that beef ribs are comparable to pork ribs, if not better. Where do you stand in that whole argument? Pork is superior, right?
A lot of times, a lot of these guys marinate a lot of that stuff with the real beef ribs, and because they can be tough. But you got a bigger bone, and you got it's a bigger piece of meat. The baby backs are more of a smaller rib, and it's kind of like a good chicken wings they're not those great big bombers. They're kind of sneaky little ones that you can eat forever.
Love it. That's what we had. Charlie McBride's with us, Hail Varsity Radio. Coach, we will check in next week and find some more football to hit on. Thanks so much for your time and your insight on Jason Light and talking some ball with us today.
Okay. Thanks for having me. I'll talk to you next week.
Sounds good, Coach.
Bye now.
Take care. There he is. Mr. Blackshirt, Charlie McBride. We will get into this discussion here with Greg Smith, Mr. Barbecue himself. We'll hit some recruiting as well. I'm a rib guy. I totally get what you're saying, but short ribs are incredible. So we'll dive into that with football on the way, too, with Hail Varsity.
And we're back.
Fellas, think we could listen to the radio
on Hail Varsity Radio, presented by the Nebraska Lottery.
Yes! That's awesome!
Back with you, Super Bowl Monday. It's Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Chris Schmidt. And we welcome in recruiting insider Greg Smith. At Greg Smith HV on Twitter is where you find him. And Greg, we will dive into football and recruiting in a new series you're doing with Aaron Sorensen on the Hail Varsity YouTube channel and hailvarsity.com when it comes to questions of the week. But beef or pork when it comes to ribs, or if you had to pick one, if we're talking the Greg Smith barbecue draft, is it short ribs or is it baby backs / St. Louis style?
It is, boy, that's tough. Yes is the answer. But if you make me pick, I'll go with St. Louis. If I'm going to pick my guest favorite out of all of those. But boy, I mean, you're not going wrong either way.
No, and the reason we bring it up is because we were asking Coach McBride about, what did you throw down for the Super Bowl? And there's a rib joint not far from where they're at, and they're baby backs, and he loved them. And McBride, I mean, that dude loves wings, okay? Loves wings. I did enough wings. I was stupid, and I had to go to 3 different spots to find wings between Saturday night and Sunday because I didn't get off my backside, Wednesday or Thursday of last week, so I had to search. And then I ended up accidentally buying a package of wings that were the full chicken wings.
Oh, yeah.
But those were sweet, too.
That'd be a little surprise, yeah.
No, they were good. And so I did a little beef rub flavoring, almost kind of a Misty's type treatment to them. They were all dry rubs. Okay. And then there's a national shortage, not only of wings, but of Old Bay. And every store I stopped in had no Old Bay. So I had
Wait, so that's real?
No, it is. And it pissed me off something fierce yesterday.
I was at the store frustrated. Okay,
yeah,
so
yes.
Actually real.
Yeah, my dad had to order on Amazon. You can find Old Bay on Amazon.
I feel as bad now. Okay, great. I mean, sucks for you guys that you went through it too. But good that I'm not as crazy walking around angry in the store looking for Old Baby.
You know what I did? Every store, and I'm like, there's a group of people masked up, and thank God for a mask because you can just MF and just storm off. I mean, that's exactly what happened. And there was this sweetie next to me. We're both staring at the spice rack, and she's wonderful looking. And I'm like, "Excuse me, ma'am, what should I substitute for Old Bay?" And she kind of just blinked at me, and she's like, "You're a goon anyway." Nothing.
Like something
she
over there.
Stomped off. I was 6 feet away. Relax. Okay. McBride's hang-up, I think, with beef ribs is they can turn into hockey pucks. Mine have never done that. They are incredible. But, man, there's no substitute for just a slab of ribs. They're so good on the smoker. Okay, so yes is the correct answer. Beef or pork, yes, okay, for the ribs. We'll wrap up with how you ate last night, but let's move forward to recruiting. And, Greg, okay, we saw an offensive line do work last night in the Super Bowl with Tampa's run game. We saw a defensive line get after it with 4, and that is incredible, and that's ideal, but not always the rule. It's more so the exception unless you're Tampa and you've built that front 4, plus the linebacking core, the front 7's incredible. So when we kind of flip it to Nebraska, who are your candidates, okay, for that guy to get after the quarterback? You've seen Nebraska's line get better against the run. You've seen Nebraska's line stop getting pushed around. You feel like, okay, with the talent you have on the offensive line plus the depth, they'll be able to run the football better or keep moving towards that as an offense that's not a liability to run the football. But when it's all said and done, what'll make Nebraska better, as we relate it to Tampa, is getting a pass rusher. Give me some guys that may be obvious, may not be obvious, that you think can be that edge dude that can go finally harass a quarterback more than a couple times a year.
Yeah, it's interesting because Nebraska's going to have to, and this sounds bad when you say it, but they're going to have to probably rely on committee. But that can be a good thing if they can get more guys to emerge. Like, we've seen a little bit of flash here and there from Garrett Nelson when it comes to rushing the quarterback. We saw Caleb Tanner starting to turn a little bit of a corner last year. I like what we saw out of Feldarius Payne and the time that we got to see him kind of coming on blitzes and looping jumping around. I think those are some guys, and there's some guys kind of off the radar that I'm really interested that are young players in the program that we haven't seen. Jamin Graham is a guy that's just kind of been in the lab for a couple of years. Jamari Butler, same way for just 1 year. Blaze Gunnerson, trying to get him healthy and ready to roll. Like, I think they have a number of guys that are still really, really intriguing, but you just haven't seen any of them all put it together outside of what you've seen from JoJo Domann, but that's kind of a different role. But I do think that there are a number of candidates that could be that guy. Husker fans just want to see a couple of them step forward.
Greg, how much do you think that position group could be aided by the eligibility freeze that went into effect this year? No one's losing eligibility. They all get an extra year development. Because I'm looking at a guy like Feldarius Payne. He got a great year of experience and development, and it's not going to count against him in the long run. It's not going to count against him, I guess I should say, in his eligibility.
Yeah, I think that'll help tremendously for a guy like Payne. The guys, to me, there's no substitute for those guys that were able to play and then keep that free year. Now it can still help you if you weren't playing and you were just kind of behind the scenes on scout team, getting your body right, lifting weights, and kind of learning and being a sponge. Like, that can help you, and guys can emerge that way. But there's no teacher quite like being out there in Big Ten play and getting to see what's going on. So a guy like Payne, I think, can really be helped after getting his feet wet. And that guy is in it for the long haul. He's committed to the team, a good teammate, too, and a good kid. So I think he's someone to definitely watch next year.
Payne's a guy that did see more increased time. Where are you at with Buddha Wright? Because he's a guy that they're going to throw some weight on. I know he got dinged, but he's kind of in that mold of yesteryear Nebraska where they would kind of move you up and move you out. If you're a safety, you turn into a corner. If you're a corner, you're a backer. If you're a backer, you're a rush end. If you're a rush end, you're a D tackle, right? Just be able to stop the run, get that speed, but the domino effect. With Buddha, with his size and weight and athletic ability, I mean, he could be a pretty nice hybrid guy that is good against the run, but, man, he could be something special with his athleticism after the quarterback.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that he is a guy to keep an eye on. And I know that Coach Chenander has been high on him and kind of the type of spring that he had been having before he got hurt. And so I think that he is a guy to watch out for. And he's got a couple of nice guys to learn from, right? Because he can be someone that, some of those older guys, like Caleb Tanner is older in the program. Take him under his wing. JoJo can also do the same thing and kind of teach him some of those hybrid tricks as well. He'll be a really, and I probably would say, I'm sorry that I forgot him, it's probably a top 5 guy on the defense that folks will really want to know about with their development over the winter and spring, because there's a lot of excitement about him.
Well, we're going to switch gears. You have an official announcement by Nebraska here a minute ago. Marcus Castro-Walker's Director of Player Development, Keenan Lowe, is going to be an offensive analysis. Bill freaking Bush is back in Nebraska as a defensive analyst here. Greg, you have long followed Bush and his recruiting wins.
Yeah, that's a big deal for anyone that wants more recruits to come to Nebraska. He's got a great track record around the country, out west as well. That'll be a big deal for Nebraska. It's always good when breaking news pops when you're on the show. But that's a good trio of names there starting off.
It is, and you get Bush as an analyst. His history speaks for itself with the special team side of things, his work in the secondary, and man, I look at a guy who helped recruit Prince Amukamara, was good with Roy Halou, was pretty instrumental with Eric Hegg. It was nice to get a guy like Alex Smith, if you're Urban Meyer, to Utah. And then he was a guy that did pretty well. And I know it wasn't good for Ash when it comes to Rutgers, but he's a guy that, also got some time at Rutgers. And, oh, yeah, by the way, the cherry on top is getting Burrow from LSU, I should say from Ohio State to LSU. That was all Bill Bush.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's one of those things, too, is you can never have too many guys that, like, when recruits come to campus, they can talk to that guy and feel really comfortable with him. And you know that that'll happen with Bill, especially a guy that's already familiar with Nebraska. He can hit the ground running and that. Now, as an analyst, he is not allowed to go out on the road. And I don't know if they could initiate phone calls. We'll have to look into that. But he'll still definitely talk to kids when they come on campus, whenever eventually the NCAA lifts that dead period.
So what do you make here of Lowe? He was at UCLA as an analyst. He was with Chip Kelly. Lowe was also head coach at Oregon High School, a couple of different spots, and was also on staff with Kelly at San Fran and in Philly. And he was a big-time wideout with Oregon, 2011 through 14. He's still a guy that resonates pretty well with high school kids, I would think, and there's obviously the connection with him and Lubick.
Yeah, that's always good. And see, that's one of the things that, and it's really kind of become a sticking point, I think, with the fan base on when these hires happen and they're already familiar with people on staff. I think sometimes fans can get a little irritated with that, but I view that as a good thing. And this is the case in this one as well, because as guys come in kind of speaking the same language, to give you some coach speak there, because they can be able to then be acclimated a lot faster in these roles because they're already used to the types of things that they're going to be doing. So I look at that as a positive, and you're right. He should still be very connected out west in the Pacific Northwest with recruiting and have good cachet and name recognition out there, so that can only help there as well.
Now, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong here, but Bill Bush was special teams coordinator at Nebraska back in the day too, correct?
Mm-hmm. And Jay Moore was on those units. It was pretty well received. Bush, I think, coached his kids really hard, but they were pretty decent units. And he's coached for Alvarez too. He's been at Nebraska, was a GA under Osborne, and he learned just a ton from Coach Darlington and Solich. Honestly, that's where he cut his teeth as a recruiting guy. Honestly, and he was really pretty good at it. Greg, I know you'll be in on the Bush recruiting effect, even though it's technically not for him to get on the road, but pretty big hire by Nebraska.
Yeah, really good stuff. Anytime, you make these types of analyst or player development hires and people are immediately happy with them, which I think that people will be with these names, that's always good. I think you just don't want to have these guys, like people get hired into these roles and go, what were they doing there? So that's always a positive, good first step.
Greg, thanks for the time today, brother. We'll do this again soon.
Hey, sounds good. Talk to you soon.
Chime in 402-466-ESPN or email the show, Chris@HailVarsity.com.
Just try me.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
So some more info here on the new Nebraska hires. As that came down about 10 minutes ago, we were talking with Greg Smith, and this is some comments from Scott Frost per the Athletic Communications release. And Marcus Castro-Walker, a name we talked about last week that was targeted and was very successful at Central Florida under Frost, but was pretty big for Herm Edwards at Arizona State as the hire for Director Player Development. Yeah, Bill Bush joining Nebraska as defensive analyst, and Keenan Lowe will serve as an offensive analyst. And I had seen this story, but I didn't make the connection, Elijah, and I'll let you take this away, about Lowe, because Lowe's pretty much a hero for some of his actions that happened, and this thing went viral a couple, 3-4 years ago. Is that right?
Would have been...
was it a year ago?
It was August 2019, so...
A little more than a year.
A little more than a year ago. But, the word hero gets thrown around so much, especially in sports.
But this is true.
This guy's like a bona fide hero.
Kind of reset it.
Yeah, he played wide receiver at Oregon underneath Frost, and then he went on to start his coaching career right after he graduated. And he took a job as a security guard at a high school, and he was also coaching the varsity football team. And let's see, one day they're having issues with a student, and he went and dealt with the student down in the office, and then the student returned to school with a shotgun underneath the trench coat. And he saw this kid walk in and pull a shotgun out and was able to tackle him to the ground and wrestle the shotgun away from him before he was able to start shooting in school. So he's legitimately a hero. He stopped a school shooting. And it's crazy to see that he went from high school security guard. Now he's an offensive analyst at Nebraska. I believe he had a stop at UCLA in between there.
Yeah, I mean, he was with Chip Kelly. And to give you a little backstory here on Lowe, he was under Chip at UCLA last year. And prior to that, you had those 2 stops at West Lynn High School and then Parkrose High in Oregon. And I think Parkrose is the school that kind of rings a bell for me with where he stopped the shooting. Is that right? Was it Parkrose or West?
Parkrose, yes.
Yeah. So that's where that was in 19. So, and Lowe before that was a guy that Kelly had on staff at the Niners and the Eagles, and he was a guy that Frost coached, and then Lubick also was with pretty high level at Oregon from 2011 through 2014. So this is a dude that played in this Oregon offense at a high level. And if he's an offensive analyst, that'll be pretty nice. But from a local standpoint, this is pretty big time to get Bill Busch. We'll see if we can't get Coach Busch on at some point here in the near future once he settles down a bit. If not, we'll for sure go chat with some Coach Darlington. George is really close with Bill, and man, we laid out the recruiting that Bill Busch has done at a high level from Burrow to LSU to Prince Amukamara here to Lincoln to special teams and Jay Moore. And Jay told us this story, God, when was it? Because Bill's name came up, right, when this whole discussion point, is Nebraska going to make changes to their staff? Is Bill Busch a guy? Did they go hire a special teams coach? If so, do you go get Bill Busch? And with Busch, he is a guy that he was able to really connect with the kids. And Jay's story was pretty simply, here's the data. I'm not wrong. You allow a blocked field goal or punt or a return, you lose the football game. Here is the data. Here is the evidence. I'm going to show you about how big of a swing in momentum a splash a splash play is on special teams. And you get an extra set of eyes and connections. I mean, let's just kind of detail where Busch has been in 20 years. When Barry's building up Wisconsin and that pops, Bill Busch is on that staff. When Bill Callahan gets to Lincoln and is building up some really good recruiting classes, who's on that staff? Bill Busch, okay? When Urban Meyer takes over his first Power 5 gig or Mountain West gig that's not in the MAC, Utah, who's there to go get Alex Smith, who's got a connection in California? It's Bill Busch that is going to say, all right, Alex Smith, let's go check out Urban Meyer. I think you'll be perfect for this offense. So on quarterbacks alone, you've got Alex Smith and you have kind of a recycling of Joe Burrow that's pretty nice. Now, Busch is a guy that is he's been coaching forever, but he's been at Utah. He's been in Wisconsin. He's been in Nebraska. He's been at LSU. He's been at Rutgers. So if you're wanting a guy, and again, as a analyst role, it's one thing. But from a history of where he's been in this part of the country, down at LSU, out to the East Coast, he's been to the West Coast and then the Utah region. He's got connections and high school people that he can touch base with everywhere in the country. It'll be pretty nice if Nebraska can capitalize on some of his connections to continue to further talent.
I just posted up the story from Adam Rittenberg on Keenan Lowe. If you want to get that checked out, him stopping the active shooter situation. Mm-hmm. That's up on the ESPN Lincoln Twitter page. Check that out. It's a great story, really interesting. Kind of also dives into the backstory of Keenan's life, his upbringing. If you really can get to know the new Nebraska assistant from that story. So that's up on ESPN Lincoln, the Twitter page, if you want to get that checked out.
Pretty awesome, and good news for Nebraska. Nice additions to to the Husker staff. So a thought here with Nebraska basketball before we wind down a show. Is there a line out tonight? It's got to be a line, right? Nebraska, what happens? Do they bring the same energy? Does Nebraska basketball finally get a win? Do they, dare I say, sting Minnesota? Minnesota's had some really impressive wins. They've also had some frustrating defeats. They are now a 10.5 point. See, and I thought, honestly, man, I would have bet the world that Sparty was going to drill Nebraska. And Nebraska ended up covering because I think that number was 11 or 12.5. And the Huskers lost, by 10 against Sparty? The line again's 10.5. And you look at Teddy Ballgame, he had 3 points. First time in 1,000 years he doesn't hit double figures. You got to go back to his freshman year at West Virginia. And you just got to wonder if maybe Teddy's got something locked up tonight. Who knows what happens with Nebraska? They'll be a size at disadvantage.
Who knows what happens all this week? They're not going to have a single actual practice.
And they are loving it.
I mean, it's just all going to be film work and walkthroughs this week.
And Fred's, he gets it. He's like, yeah, they hate practice anyway, so let's just treat this thing like an NBA. Ohio State better not make me sound like a fool. They're at Maryland tonight. We'll wind down on Monday next.
Miss us?
Come here, brother. Give me a hug. Bring it in for the real thing.
We're on call for you. Catch the podcast at HailVarsity.com, the ESPN Lincoln app, or download them on iTunes.
Saddle up, partner.
Back to Hail Varsity Radio.
One final time, it's Hail Varsity presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Reminder, 70% of people in fatal crashes in Nebraska not wearing their seatbelt. If used properly, seatbelts can and will reduce the risk of fatal injury by up to 60%. Your best decision in any crash, buckling up, brought to you by the Nebraska Department of Highway Safety Office. So you have the new Nebraska analyst hires in player development. That's good stuff. Nebraska basketball tips off minus 10.5 against Minnesota. It is time to recount the steak and beer bet from Friday ahead of the Super Bowl when it comes to the prop bets. We both were right with Tampa. I was right with the 31 points. It wasn't nearly as close as what I said, 31-28. Junior thought it'd be an overtime win by Tampa. You had a tight ball game as well, but we all had Tampa as the outright winner. So smile there. How did the steak and the beer prop bet go?
Well, we'll start it off with Tom Brady's passing. We were both under on that, and we were both correct. So even there. We were both over on Patrick Mahomes' passing yardage. We were both wrong. So 1-1. We both correctly predicted Tyreek Hill under 150 receiving yards.
Okay.
We were both wrong on the Gatorade color. You said orange. I said yellow.
It was blue.
It was blue. Should have known. Blue's the best flavor anyway. We both correctly predicted Tom Brady as MVP.
Okay.
So it comes down to the national anthem.
Bang.
You had over, I had under, and it was way over. It was like 15 seconds over.
Yeah, it's 2:15, man. I mean, Eric Church hooked me up.
So you were 4-2 in your prop bets. I was 3-3. You get the steak and a beer bet win this week, as you've done so many weeks this year.
That is so good. That is so good, and a filet bone-in will be exquisite. We just need things to thaw out.
Yeah, I hear Saturday is supposed to be nice weather, right?
Like what, 20?
No, -3.
Oh, my God. Excited tomorrow. We are going to be able to run down a part of Tampa's connection and Shaq Barrett. So Shaq Barrett, of course, his story is 1,000% impressive with Shaq, as he was a Boys Town kid and played and was an all-state football player, and then went to UNO, and after UNO said goodbye, went to Colorado State, and he's been a guy who's earned it his whole life, found a way to make the practice squad for a couple of seasons for Denver, and then just kept grinding, had his breakout season last year to lead the NFL with 19.5 sacks. Got paid this last year as a one-year deal for $15 million. So Barrett's doing incredible. But we're going to go back and have some time tomorrow with Aaron Groff. He was Shaq's wrestling coach at Boys Town. So I want the full Shaq Barrett story. And one of the people really important in Shaq's life, Aaron Groff, will be with us tomorrow. We'll hear from Coach Kaczynski as well. And Mitch Sherman with us. So pretty loaded up. A busy Wednesday and more fun the rest of the week on Hail Varsity. Elijah, good stuff. We will talk to you tomorrow morning and get you ready. Tomorrow morning and tomorrow afternoon. Find us at 4 with Hail Varsity. We're presented by the Nebraska Lottery. Have a good one.